The grand warship ESS Invictus floated majestically in the orbital docks above Earth, its metal hull gleaming under the distant sun. Admiral Ji Young stood tall on the observation deck, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the Galactic Confederation delegation approach. This meeting had been years in the making, humanity's formal introduction to the wider galactic community and their first real chance at joining the prestigious Confederation. "They're here," whispered Commander Hyun Ki, Ji Young's trusted second-in-command. His voice betrayed the nervousness they all felt. Ji Young nodded but kept her expression neutral. After 20 years in Earth's United Space Fleet, she had mastered the art of hiding her feelings. Today, that skill would be tested to its limits. The alien delegation glided onto the deck with an almost supernatural grace. The Vraxians led the group, tall, slender beings with iridescent scales that shifted colors with each movement. Behind them came representatives from 7 other species, each more strange and wonderful than the last. "Welcome to Earth's orbital defense station," Ji Young said with a formal bow. "I am Admiral Ji Young of the United Space Fleet. We are honored by your presence." Ambassador Terok, the lead Vraxian, tilted his elongated head. His large, multifaceted eyes blinked in sequence rather than together. "The honor is ours, Admiral. We have watched your species with great interest since you achieved your first faster-than-light jump." His words were polite, but Ji Young caught the subtle tone in his translator, something between amusement and condescension. "Please," she gestured toward the viewing window. "Allow me to show you our fleet." The tour began with Earth's newest vessels, the pride of human engineering. Ji Young explained each ship class with carefully practiced enthusiasm. The heavy cruisers with their point defense systems, the nimble corvettes designed for reconnaissance, the massive carrier ships that housed smaller fighter craft. But as the tour progressed, she noticed the aliens' interest waning. Several were examining the ships through personal devices, their expressions growing increasingly dismissive. "Is something wrong?" Ji Young finally asked when Ambassador Terok made a sound that his translator didn't convert, something like a snort. "Not wrong, precisely," Terok replied. He gestured toward the ESS Invictus, Earth's flagship and most advanced warship. "Your vessels are charming. They remind me of the historical exhibits in our youth education centers." One of the other aliens, a bulbous creature with multiple appendages, added, "You still use reaction thrusters for maneuvering. Fascinating." Ji Young felt her cheeks warm but kept her smile fixed. "Our technology has served us well in defending our system from pirate incursions and navigating the challenges of space." "Of course," Terok said, waving a 4-fingered hand dismissively. "For a species so young, you've made remarkable progress. But surely you understand why the Confederation has concerns about admitting Earth as a full member. Your technological development is," he seemed to search for a diplomatic word, "ongoing." The delegation moved closer to the viewing window, pointing out features of the human ships to each other and occasionally making sounds that their translators didn't convert, but that Ji Young recognized as laughter. "Here," Terok said, activating a holographic display from a device on his wrist. Above his palm floated the image of a sleek vessel with no visible propulsion systems. "This is my personal courier ship. No engines in the conventional sense. The hull is a living bioceramic that repairs itself. It's considered rather basic by Confederation standards." Ji Young studied the image with genuine interest. "Impressive. We would be eager to learn about such technologies as part of our membership." "Learn, yes," said another alien, this one with a body that seemed composed entirely of crystalline structures. "But you are centuries from implementing such designs. The technological gap is problematic for integration." Commander Hyun Ki, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. "With respect, technological advancement can accelerate rapidly with proper guidance. Earth has moved from combustion engines to warp drives in less than 200 years. The aliens exchanged glances that Ji Young couldn't interpret. Terok gestured toward the ESS Invictus again. May we see inside your flagship? We're curious about your command systems. Jai Young hesitated only briefly. The Invictus contained classified systems, but showing good faith might help their cause. Of course. Please follow me. As they boarded the massive warship, Jai Young felt a swell of pride, despite the aliens' condescension. The Invictus had been her home for 5 years. She knew every corridor, every system. It might not have living hulls or invisible engines, but it was a marvel of human ingenuity. The tour through the ship only seemed to amuse the aliens further. They examined the manual controls with something like nostalgia. They asked questions about the life support systems that made Jai Young realize just how far advanced their own technologies must be. In the engine room, Terok ran a scanner over the warp drive core. Fascinating. You still use dimensional folding with particle acceleration. We moved beyond this approach after it caused the Relian catastrophe. The what? Asked Hyun-Ki. A tragedy from long ago. An entire species lost when their sun collapsed. These drives can create unexpected subspace distortions under certain conditions. Jai Young exchanged a worried glance with her engineer, who made a note on his tablet. The final stop was the bridge, the nerve center of the Invictus. Jai Young had always found it impressive, with its commanding view of space and its array of control stations. But seeing it through the alien's eyes, she suddenly noticed how cluttered it seemed, how many physical interfaces were required for operation. Quaint technology, primitive propulsion systems, metal hulls. Ambassador Terok remarked, his translator barely concealing his derision as he completed his inspection. We abandoned such antiquated designs millennia ago. Your species shows promise, but these vessels would be museum pieces in Confederation space. The word stung more than Jai Young wanted to admit. She had dedicated her life to these ships, to Earth's defense. Perhaps, she replied carefully. But sometimes older designs have advantages not immediately apparent. Evolution selects for survival, not complexity. Terok tilted his head again, his scales shifting to a deeper blue. An interesting perspective, Admiral, though I'm not sure how it applies to obviously superior technology. The meeting concluded with polite but empty promises to continue discussions about Earth's potential membership. As the alien delegation departed, Jai Young and Hyun-Ki watched their shuttle, a seamless craft that seemed to flow rather than fly, disappear into the darkness of space. That went well, Hyun-Ki said, his voice heavy with sarcasm. Jai Young sighed. They see us as children playing with toys. Are they wrong? She turned to look at her friend, her expression hardening. Yes, they are. She gestured to the fleet spread out before them. They're judging us by their standards, their history. Humanity didn't develop in the same environment they did. We faced different challenges, found different solutions. Hyun-Ki nodded slowly. And some of those solutions might surprise them. Exactly. Jai Young's eyes narrowed as she watched the last glimmer of the alien shuttle vanish. Let's hope we never have to show them just how effective our primitive fleet can be. The alarm sounded in the middle of the night, waking Admiral Jai Young from a restless sleep. The soft blue glow of her emergency communicator filled her small quarters aboard the orbital command station. Admiral, we need you on the bridge immediately. Commander Hyun-Ki's voice was tense. Jai Young dressed quickly and hurried through the quiet corridors. The night shift crew looked up as she entered the bridge, their faces pale in the glow of the monitors. What is it? She asked, though the massive display screen already told her everything. Hyun-Ki pointed to the long-range sensor readings. We detected them crossing the Kuiper Belt boundary an hour ago. The computer took time to confirm the signature patterns. On the screen, hundreds of energy signatures moved in perfect formation toward the inner solar system. Each dot represented a ship larger than anything in Earth's fleet. The Hive, Jai Young whispered. She had heard stories about them from other species, a collective intelligence that consumed rather than conquered. They didn't seek resources or territory in the traditional sense. They absorbed technology, biology, and information, incorporating it all into their ever-growing neural network. "How fast are they moving?" she asked. "At current speed, they'll reach Earth in about 60 days. Jai Young's mind raced through options, none of them good. Earth's fleet was small, designed primarily for system defense and limited exploration. The ships were well built and the crews well trained, but they had never faced anything like the Hive. "Contact Earth Central Command. Wake up the Defense Council. And send an emergency message to the Confederation. Code Black." Within 12 hours, the Defense Council had gathered in the orbital station's secure conference room. The holographic displays showed the approaching fleet from multiple angles. President Taeho sat at the head of the table, his normally cheerful face now grim. "What do we know about them?" he asked. Admiral Ji Young stood. "The Hive Dominion is a species, or rather a collection of species, that functions as a single neural network. They've consumed 12 known civilizations in the past century. No one has successfully repelled them." Minister of Defense Jin Woo leaned forward. "And what are our options?" "We fight," Jai Young said simply. "We gather every ship, arm every station, and prepare to defend Earth with everything we have. And our chances of success," Jai Young hesitated, "based on what we know of their technology and numbers, slim. But we faced bad odds before." The room fell silent as the reality sank in. "What about the Confederation?" asked President Taeho. "Surely they won't allow the Hive to establish a foothold so close to their territory." "We've sent multiple emergency messages," Jai Young replied. No response yet. As if on cue, the communication officer's voice came through the speaker. "Madam President, Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from a Confederation vessel. They're requesting permission to dock." The Confederation representatives arrived 3 hours later. Ambassador Terak led the group, his scales now a muted gray rather than their usual iridescent colors. 4 other species accompanied him, all wearing the formal insignia of the Confederation Council. They were escorted directly to the conference room, where Earth's leaders waited anxiously. Ambassador, President Taeho greeted them with a formal bow. "We appreciate your prompt response to our distress call." Terak bowed in return, but his expression remained grave. "We came as quickly as possible when we confirmed the Hive's trajectory. We've been tracking their movements for some time." "Then you know the danger we face," said Jai Young. "We request immediate Confederation assistance under the Mutual Defense Protocol." An uncomfortable silence followed her words. The aliens exchanged glances. "I regret to inform you," Terak finally said, "that Confederation policy prohibits military intervention for non-member worlds. Your application for membership is still under review and cannot be expedited, even under these circumstances." The room erupted in angry voices. Minister Jin Woo slammed his fist on the table. "You're condemning an entire planet to death because of bureaucracy." Terak raised a hand for silence. "Please understand our position. The Confederation has existed for millennia through strict adherence to our principles. We cannot make exceptions, even in dire situations." "Then why are you here?" President Taeho asked quietly. "To offer what assistance we can within our guidelines. We can provide evacuation support for a limited number of your population. Priority would be given to cultural artifacts, genetic samples, and individuals with unique knowledge." Jai Young felt cold anger rising in her chest. "You're offering to save our art and DNA, but not our people. We can accommodate perhaps 1 million humans on various Confederation worlds," Terak continued. "It would be a chance for your species to survive, even if your homeworld falls." President Taeho's expression remained carefully neutral, though Jai Young could see the muscle twitching in his jaw. "And how long until the Hive reaches Earth?" "Approximately 2 Earth months. We strongly advise immediate evacuation planning." "I see." The President stood slowly. "Ambassador, I would like to discuss your offer with my council privately. Would you give us the room?" After the Confederation representatives left, the room exploded again with angry voices and desperate suggestions. Jia Young waited until the initial outburst subsided before speaking. "They've written us off," she said flatly. "They're already treating Earth as lost." 1 million people, Defense Minister Jin Woo said bitterly. "Out of 11 billion, they're offering to save less than 1/100% of our population." President Taiho walked to the window, looking out at the blue-green planet below. "We're not accepting their offer," he said firmly. "Earth has faced extinction before. We will not abandon our home." "What do we do then?" asked one of the junior ministers. "If the Confederation won't help us?" Jia Young exchanged a glance with Defense Minister Jin Woo. They had discussed this possibility in private, though neither had believed it would come to this. "Project Lazarus," she said. The president turned, his eyebrows raised. "The Deep Black Project. I was briefed on it when I took office. Is it operational?" "Partially," Jin Woo confirmed. "We've been developing it for decades, ever since first contact made us realize we might not be the most advanced species in the galaxy. It was designed specifically as a last resort against technologically superior enemies." Jia Young added, "We never thought we'd need to use it, but here we are," the president finished. He returned to the table. "Implement it immediately. Pull whatever resources you need. In the meantime, we'll continue diplomatic efforts with the Confederation." When they invited the Confederation representatives back into the room, President Taiho had composed himself. "Ambassador Terak, we appreciate your offer of evacuation assistance," he said formally. "However, humanity has decided to stand and fight. We request any tactical information you can provide about the Hive's weaknesses and battle strategies." Terak's scales shifted to a pale blue. A sign of surprise. Jia Young had learned. "You cannot hope to defeat them. Your technology is centuries behind theirs. Nevertheless, this is our decision." The ambassador seemed genuinely troubled. "I will provide what non-classified information we have, but I urge you to reconsider. Even a small remnant of humanity would be better than complete extinction." "Thank you for your concern," the president replied. "But humans have a saying. It's better to die on your feet than live on your knees. We will face the Hive with everything we have." As the meeting concluded, and the Confederation representatives prepared to leave, Ambassador Terak approached Ji Young privately. "Admiral, I respect your courage," he said quietly, "but I have witnessed the aftermath of Hive conquests. There is no honor in such a death, only oblivion." Jia Young met his multifaceted eyes steadily. "Perhaps, but you haven't seen what humans can do when our backs are against the wall, Ambassador. You might be surprised." "For your sake, I hope so," Terak replied. "Though I fear we will only be recording the fall of yet another promising species." After the Confederation ship departed, Jia Young gathered her top commanders. They had 2 months to prepare for the fight of their lives, and to fully implement a defense system that had never been tested outside simulations. The clock was ticking. Earth was on its own. The orbital shipyards above Earth buzzed with activity day and night. Massive cranes moved in careful patterns, attaching weapon systems to vessels that had once carried only cargo or passengers. Welders' sparks looked like tiny stars against the blackness of space. In 6 short weeks, humanity had transformed its entire space infrastructure into a war machine. Admiral Ji Young hadn't slept more than 4 hours at a stretch during this time. Dark circles had formed under her eyes, but her gaze remained sharp as she studied the holographic display in the command center. It showed the positions of every ship in Earth's hastily assembled defense fleet. "Another civilian transport completed retrofitting," reported Lieutenant Sujin, marking off an item on her tablet. "That brings us to 87% conversion rate of all system vessels." Jia Young nodded. "What about the deep space freighters we recalled from the mining colonies?" 60% have returned. The rest won't make it back before the Hive arrives." The Admiral sighed. Every ship would count in the coming battle. Even with their frantic preparations, they were still hopelessly outnumbered. Commander Hyun-ki entered the command center, carrying fresh coffee. He handed a steaming cup to Jia Young. "You need to rest," he said quietly. "Later," she replied, taking a grateful sip. "How's the Lazarus implementation going?" Hyun-ki lowered his voice further. "Phase 1 is complete on all military vessels. The civilian ships are at 70%. The engineers are working around the clock." Project Lazarus had been Earth's most closely guarded secret for decades. It had begun after humanity's first contact with alien life, when they realized how far behind they were technologically. While Earth publicly developed conventional space technology, a hidden program explored more radical approaches to defense. The project had required innovations in artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, and quantum mechanics that pushed the boundaries of human understanding. Most of Earth's leadership hadn't even known it existed until the hive threat emerged. "Show me the latest test results," Jae-young ordered. Hyun-ki activated a secure channel on the nearest terminal. The screen showed footage from a remote testing area in the asteroid belt. A decommissioned transport ship floated in space. Suddenly, an energy beam struck it, cutting the vessel nearly in half. Instead of exploding, the ship seemed to disintegrate, but not randomly. The fragments moved with purpose, separating into distinct units that began to glow with internal power. "Success rate?" Jae-young asked. 92% transformation, 8% loss. "Better than our previous tests." Jae-young nodded, allowing herself a small moment of hope. "And the hive won't be able to detect the systems until activation." "No. The quantum shielding masks all signatures. To their sensors, our ships will look exactly as the Confederation described them. Primitive, simple, vulnerable." A smile ghosted across Jae-young's tired face. "Good." The door to the command center slid open, and Defense Minister Jin-woo entered with President Tae-ho. The room's staff immediately stood at attention. "At ease," the president said. "I came to see our progress firsthand." Jae-young led them to the main display. "We've mobilized every ship capable of combat. The moon bases have been converted to weapon platforms. The Mars colony has been evacuated, with all personnel and resources brought back to Earth." "And civilian evacuation?" the president asked. "Underground shelters are ready. We've moved as many people as possible away from major cities and coastal areas." Jae-young hesitated. "But if the hive breaks through our defenses—" "I understand." The president's expression was grim but resolved. "What about the Confederation? Any further communication?" "They've maintained their position. No additional help offered." Minister Jin-woo scoffed. "They're still watching us, though. We've detected at least 3 observation vessels beyond Neptune's orbit, recording our final moments for their archives." "No doubt," Hyun-ki added bitterly. The president studied the fleet display for a long moment. "How much do they know about Lazarus?" "Nothing," Jae-young assured him. "The project has never been mentioned in any communication with the Confederation. As far as they know, we're facing the hive with conventional weapons only." "Good." President Tae-ho straightened his shoulders. "Perhaps their observations will prove educational in ways they don't expect." For the next 2 weeks, the pace of preparation only intensified. Every citizen who could contribute did so, manufacturing parts, programming systems, or training for emergency response. The entire planet held its breath, waiting. In the shipyards, the final vessels received their Lazarus upgrades. Teams worked in rotating shifts, pushing themselves beyond exhaustion. What would normally have taken years was being accomplished in mere weeks. Jae-young spent most of her time in the secure facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, where the heart of Project Lazarus was housed. Deep underwater, protected by layers of rock and metal, engineers monitored the quantum network that would connect every ship in Earth's fleet. The simulations show an 87% chance of success if the hive follows their standard attack pattern. Senior engineer Min-ho explained, pointing to complex equations on his screen. "If they adapt quickly, the probability drops to 63%. Better odds than anyone else has had against them," Jae-young noted. "There's one problem," Min-ho continued, hesitation in his voice. We never designed the system to handle this many ships simultaneously. The quantum entanglement might become unstable if too many units activate at once. What's the worst-case scenario? Complete system failure. The ships would lose the Lazarus capability entirely. Jia Young rubbed her temples. Can we stagger the activation? Possibly. I'll have the team work on a sequential protocol. As the day of confrontation drew closer, Jia Young returned to the orbital command station. From here, she would direct Earth's defense when the hive arrived. The station had been reinforced and equipped with the most powerful version of the Lazarus system. The night before the expected contact, she stood alone in the observation deck, looking down at the blue planet that had been humanity's only home for thousands of years. Cities glittered like jewels across the darkened continents. Most of those lights should have been darkened as part of the blackout protocol, but it seemed many humans preferred to face their possible end with lights blazing. Commander Hyun-ki found her there, still watching Earth as dawn broke over Asia. "You should try to rest," he said. "Tomorrow will demand everything from us." Jia Young nodded but didn't move. "Do you think we have a chance, truly?" Hyun-ki considered the question seriously. "I think we've done everything possible to prepare. Project Lazarus is revolutionary, like nothing any species has developed before, if it works as designed." "That's a significant if," she noted. "Yes, but sometimes the best advantage is being underestimated." He handed her a tablet. "Final status report. All ships are in position. Lazarus protocols have been uploaded to the entire fleet." Jia Young reviewed the report carefully. "Any word from the Confederation observers?" "They're maintaining position beyond Neptune. Still watching. Probably recording our destruction for their archives. Let's hope they're paying close attention," Jia Young said with grim determination. "They might learn something." The alert came just after midnight, Earth Standard Time. The Hive fleet had crossed Mars' orbit and was accelerating toward Earth. Their formation was even larger than the long-range scans had suggested. Over 300 massive ships, each one dwarfing Earth's largest vessel. Jia Young took her position in the command chair as the station went to full alert status. Around her, officers monitored various systems, their faces illuminated by the blue glow of their screens. "Open a channel to all Earth vessels," she ordered. When the communication officer nodded, Jia Young took a deep breath. The next few hours would determine the fate of humanity. "This is Admiral Ji Young to all ships. The enemy will reach our outer defense perimeter in approximately 3 hours. Maintain current positions until ordered otherwise. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for." She paused. Throughout history, humanity has faced extinction many times. Each time, we have adapted and survived. Today will be no different. She closed the channel and turned to her executive officer. "Commander Hyun-ki, activate Lazarus standby mode. All ships to remain in passive configuration until my command." "Yes, Admiral." His fingers flew over the control panel. Lazarus system now in standby. All ships acknowledging. Jia Young settled back in her chair, her face calm despite the storm of emotions inside her. After all the preparations, the sleepless nights, the desperate innovations, the moment of truth had arrived. "Now we wait," she said softly, "and hope that our ancient fleet has a few surprises left in it." The Hive fleet emerged from lightspeed at the edge of Earth's defense perimeter, their massive ships arranged in perfect geometric formations. Each vessel was organic in appearance, more like a living creature than a constructed ship. Their surfaces rippled and pulsed with strange energies the human sensors struggled to categorize. Admiral Ji Young stood on the command deck of the orbital station, her face illuminated by the tactical display. The enemy outnumbered them 3-1, and each Hive ship was larger than anything in Earth's arsenal. "They're scanning us," reported the sensor officer. "Multiple frequencies." Jia Young nodded. "Let them look. Everyone maintain radio silence. No transmissions unless absolutely necessary." The strategy was simple, at least in theory. Allow the Hive to believe Earth's defenses were exactly what they appeared to be. Outdated, conventional warships arranged in traditional defensive formations. For nearly 20 minutes, the two fleets faced each other in eerie silence. The Hive ships continued their scans, occasionally shifting position, but making no aggressive moves. "What are they waiting for?" whispered Commander Hyun-ki. "They're assessing us," Jae-young replied, "determining if we're worth the effort to consume." Suddenly, the tactical display lit up with warning indicators. The Hive ships had begun powering their weapon systems simultaneously. "All ships, brace for impact," Jae-young ordered through the fleet-wide channel. "Hold positions. I repeat, do not activate countermeasures until my command." The Hive struck first. Energy beams of brilliant purple light lanced out from their lead vessels, crossing the void in microseconds. They targeted Earth's front line, the newest and most advanced human ships that formed the primary defense screen. The ESS Dauntless, a heavy cruiser, took a direct hit amidships. For a moment, the energy beams seemed to pass through the vessel without effect. Then the ship's hull began to glow red-hot along the impact line. Secondary explosions erupted across its surface as internal systems overloaded. Similar scenes played out across the defensive line. 5 ships hit in the first volley, 3 more in the second. The Hive weapons were devastatingly effective, designed to disrupt both matter and energy at the quantum level. On board the observation vessel Celestial Watcher, Ambassador Teruk and the Confederation observers watched the battle unfold. As expected, noted a Trilaxian scientist, their tentacles manipulating the sensor controls. The human vessels cannot withstand even a single direct hit from Hive weaponry. Teruk's scales had darkened to a deep blue, a sign of sadness in his species. They were brave to stand against the inevitable. Begin preparing the official report on the fall of humanity for the Confederation archives. Another observer, a crystalline being from the Arcturus system, magnified the image of the human ships breaking apart. Curious behavior for debris, they noted. The fragmentation pattern seems almost deliberate. Teruk leaned forward, his multifaceted eyes focusing on the display. The destroyed human ships weren't simply disintegrating as expected. The fragments were moving in controlled patterns, separating along pre-designed fault lines. "Enhance the sensor readings," he ordered. Back on the Earth command station, Jae-young watched the destruction of the front line with outward calm. Inside, her heart raced. Everything depended on the next few moments. "Lazarus activation criteria met," reported the systems officer. 8 ships have taken critical damage. Jae-young took a deep breath. "Initiate Project Lazarus. All damaged vessels begin transformation sequence. Secondary units prepare for Phase 2. Commander Hyun-ki relayed the commands through the quantum-encrypted channel. Then he looked up at Jae-young, his expression a mixture of hope and fear. "And now we find out if it works." Out in space, something unprecedented began to happen. The ESS Dauntless, which had been torn nearly in half by the Hive weapon, suddenly split completely, not in the chaotic manner of a destroyed ship, but in a controlled, purposeful separation. The two halves drifted apart, and then each section further divided into smaller components. Within seconds, what had been a single large cruiser had transformed into dozens of smaller craft, each one activating independent propulsion systems. Machinery that had been hidden within the ship's structure emerged, revealing weapons and engines that had been completely shielded from detection. The same process unfolded with every destroyed human ship. What appeared to be catastrophic damage revealed itself as deliberate segmentation. The fragments began to move with purpose, forming new attack patterns that bore no resemblance to their original formation. Project Lazarus. Earth's fleet wasn't composed of traditional starships, but modular, semi-autonomous combat units disguised as conventional vessels. Each ship could split into multiple independent fighting platforms, each with its own AI tactical system. By the ancestral light, gasped Ambassador Teruk aboard the Confederation vessel. "What are we witnessing?" The Trilaxian scientist manipulated the controls frantically. "The human ships, they're transforming." Each destroyed vessel is becoming multiple smaller craft. Impossible, declared another observer. Their technology cannot support such capabilities. But the evidence was undeniable. Where the Hive had faced a conventional defensive line of large vulnerable targets, they now confronted a swarm of hundreds of smaller, faster vessels that were quickly surrounding their position. The Hive reacted swiftly, adjusting their weapon systems to track the smaller targets. But their massive ships had been designed to fight conventional space fleets. They struggled to target the rapidly moving human craft that now darted between their formations. On the command station, Ji-young leaned forward intently. Status report on Lazarus units. Transformation complete on all damaged vessels, reported the tactical officer. 93% successful activation rate. 7% of modules non-responsive. Better than the simulations, noted Hyun-ki with cautious optimism. Ji-young nodded. Begin Phase 2. All undamaged vessels prepare for voluntary transformation on my mark. This was the riskiest part of the strategy. The initial transformations had been triggered by actual damage. The ships had been designed to separate when struck by enemy fire. But the rest of the fleet would now initiate the process voluntarily, without the catalyst of damage. 3, 2, 1. Execute Phase 2, Ji-young ordered. Across the defensive line, the remaining human ships began to change. Outer hulls separated along invisible seams. Components that had appeared to be structural supports detached and revealed themselves as weapon platforms. Ships that had seemed primitive and vulnerable unfolded into configurations that defied conventional space warfare doctrine. The Hive fleet's perfect formation began to show signs of confusion. Their coordinated attack patterns faltered as they attempted to adapt to the unexpected transformation of their enemies. They're hesitating, Hyun-ki observed. The collective intelligence is trying to process what's happening. Ji-young seized the opportunity. All Lazarus units, initiate attack pattern Delta. Target their propulsion systems and command nodes. The swarm of transformed human vessels surged forward. Where before the battle had been one-sided, with the Hive methodically destroying Earth's defenses, now hundreds of small, agile craft darted between the massive alien ships, firing precisely at vulnerable points. The modular design gave the human forces an unprecedented advantage. When a Lazarus unit was hit, instead of being destroyed completely, it would lose only a component. The remaining sections would continue fighting independently. Ambassador Terak watched in stunned silence as the tide of battle shifted before his eyes. How is this possible? Their technology was assessed as centuries behind Confederation standards. They concealed their true capabilities, realized the crystalline observer. The primitive ships were a facade. But why? Asked another. Why present themselves as technologically inferior? Terak's scales shifted to a yellowed hue, the color of revelation. Because they knew no one would look closely at technology that appeared primitive. We dismissed them as unworthy of serious study. On the battlefield, 3 Hive vessels had already been crippled by the human swarm. Their organic hulls pulsed with damage control efforts, but the precisely targeted attacks had overwhelmed their self-repair systems. The collective intelligence of the Hive was adapting, however. Their remaining ships began to change formation, clustering together to create overlapping fields of fire that made it harder for the small human craft to approach unscathed. In the command center, Ji-young noticed the shift. They're adapting. Prepare for Phase 3. Are you sure? Hyun-ki asked. The system stress might be too great if we initiate now. We don't have a choice. If we give them time to fully adapt, we lose our advantage. Ji-young opened a channel to all ships. All units, prepare for Phase 3 transformation. Stand by for my mark. She turned to the quantum communications specialist. Status of the Lazarus network. Stable, Admiral. Operating at 87% efficiency. Ji-young nodded and took a deep breath. Phase 3 had never been tested outside simulations. It represented the most advanced technology humans had ever developed. And their greatest gamble. Execute Phase 3, she ordered. Out in space, the swarm of human vessels began to change again. But this time, instead of separating further, they started to combine. Modules from different original ships linked together, forming new configurations optimized for the current battle conditions. Project Lazarus had reached its ultimate expression, a completely fluid space fleet that could adapt its very structure to counter enemy tactics in real time. The Hive Collective faltered again, its attack patterns becoming increasingly erratic as it struggled to counter an enemy unlike any it had encountered in its long history of consumption. In the Confederation observation vessel, the aliens watched in silence as humanity revealed a technological leap that none of them had believed possible. "We were wrong," Ambassador Terok said quietly. "Completely wrong." For 3 days, the battle raged across the solar system. What had begun as a desperate last stand transformed into the most remarkable military upset in recent galactic history. Admiral Ji Young hadn't slept more than a few hours during the entire conflict, sustaining herself with stimulants and sheer determination. "Status report," she demanded, her voice hoarse from issuing constant orders. Commander Hyunke, looking equally exhausted, checked the tactical display. "We've destroyed 27 Hive vessels and disabled 43 more. Our losses stand at 32% of original combat capability. And the Lazarus network, still operational, but strained. The quantum entanglement is showing signs of instability in sectors 4 and 7. Ji Young nodded. They had pushed the experimental technology far beyond its design limits. The fact that it still functioned at all was a testament to the engineers who had created it. The battle had moved from Earth orbit out to the asteroid belt as the human forces pursued the retreating Hive ships. What began as an outmatched human fleet of several hundred vessels had evolved into a swarming armada of thousands of autonomous units that surrounded, infiltrated, and systematically dismantled the Hive Dominion forces. 2 weeks later, Ji Young stood in the grand reception hall of the newly completed Earth Diplomatic Center. Through the transparent ceiling, the stars shone brightly, including a new light that hadn't been there before, the Confederation diplomatic vessel in synchronous orbit above. The hall buzzed with conversation as representatives from every nation on Earth mingled with the Confederation delegation. What had once been a small group of observers had expanded to include diplomats from 17 different species, all eager to establish relations with the civilization that had defeated the Hive. President Taiho approached Ji Young, nodding respectfully. "Admiral, you look much better with some rest." "Thank you, Mr. President. 3 days of sleep made a remarkable difference." "You deserved it." He gestured toward the gathering. "Quite a change in their attitude, isn't it?" Ji Young observed the Confederation representatives, noting how they now interacted with humans as equals rather than as primitive curiosities. "Yes, nothing earns respect quite like surviving what was supposed to kill you. The Council has fast-tracked our membership application," the President informed her. "They're even discussing giving Earth a seat on the Defense Committee." "Because they want access to Lazarus technology," Ji Young noted. "Of course. But we'll negotiate favorable terms." He smiled. "After all, we've proven we can defend ourselves without them if necessary." Ambassador Terok approached them, his scales now a formal shade of green. "President Taiho, Admiral Ji Young, the Council has asked me to personally express their admiration for Earth's innovative approach to space defense." "Thank you, Ambassador," the President replied. "We look forward to sharing our innovations with our new allies, within reasonable parameters, of course." "Of course," Terok agreed. "The Council understands that every civilization must maintain certain technological advantages." He turned to Ji Young. "I must ask, Admiral, was Project Lazarus developed specifically to counter the Hive, or was it a more general defense system?" Ji Young chose her words carefully. "It was designed to provide an asymmetric advantage against any technologically superior force. The modular approach allows for adaptation to various threats." "Fascinating." Terok's eyes gleamed with genuine interest. "And was this your only hidden technology? Or should the Confederation expect more surprises from humanity? Jia Young exchanged a brief glance with the president before answering. Ambassador, humanity has survived on a world where nearly everything evolved to kill us. Adaptation and innovation aren't just our technologies. They're in our DNA. The ambassador's scales rippled with a color that suggested thoughtful consideration. A point well taken, Admiral. I believe many in the Confederation underestimated not just your technology, but your species as a whole. A common mistake, Jia Young replied, but usually made only once. As the reception continued, Jia Young found a moment to step away from the crowds. She moved to the observation window that overlooked Earth below. The blue planet shone brilliantly against the blackness of space, still bearing scars from the battle, but very much alive. Commander Hyun-ki joined her at the window. Quite a view. Yes, she agreed. Worth fighting for. The engineering team says the Lazarus network is fully restored. They've even made some improvements based on battle data. Jia Young nodded. Good. Something tells me we'll need it again someday. The hive? Perhaps, or something else. She turned to look at the gathering of alien diplomats. The galaxy is full of dangers we haven't encountered yet, but also opportunities, Hyun-ki pointed out. The Confederation offers access to technologies and knowledge we've only dreamed of. True, as long as we remember the lesson we taught them. Jia Young's expression grew serious. Never judge by appearances alone. What looks primitive might be revolutionary. What seems weak might be stronger than you could imagine. A lesson humanity has learned many times throughout our history, Hyun-ki observed. And now we've taught it to the stars. Jia Young smiled as she looked out at the vast expanse of space. Earth's ancient fleet had revealed itself as something remarkable, a reflection of humanity's greatest strength, the ability to appear defeated while preparing for an unexpected comeback. The Confederation had come to observe Earth's destruction for their archives. Instead, they had witnessed the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history, one where humanity would no longer be underestimated.